Mr. Prime Minister, dear brother Ousmane Sonko, Minister of Defense of the Republic of Senegal. Excellency, Mr. Ambassador of Senegal to Mali, members of the Senegalese delegation, ladies and gentlemen, members of the government of the Republic of Mali, I would like to begin by wishing, on behalf of the President of the Transition, Head of State, His Excellency Colonel Assimi Goïta, on behalf of the government of Mali and on behalf of myself, a warm welcome to my brother Ousmane Sonko at his home here in Mali, as well as to the delegation accompanying him. I wish you every success in carrying out your mission, Mr. Prime Minister. I would then like to congratulate you in person after my official congratulatory telegram of May 29, 2024, for the choices made on your person following the brilliant victory of the candidate of the PASTEF, Patriots of Senegal Party for Work, Ethics and Fraternity, that you created in 2014. I was therefore saying that the choice made on you following the presidential election of March 24, 2024, which brought to power His Excellency President of the Republic of Senegal Bassirou Diomaye Faye, leader of the victory of the candidate of the PASTEF, is a witness to the support of the Senegalese people, in particular young people, women and members of civil society who are the most numerous and the most active in your party's social project.
Les femmes et les membres de la société civile qui sont les plus nombreux et les plus actifs au projet de société de votre parti.
In this crucial period of Senegal's political history, and it as the Prime Minister, you have demonstrated great lucidity, a capacity for discernment and anticipation unprecedented in the contemporary history of Africa. You have demonstrated great strategic maturity. I wish you much success in your approach. You have done politics in the true sense of the term. That means I am used to giving a definition of politics as I understand it. We do not learn politics in schools. In schools we learn to be a political advisor. Politics is an art. I said that the definition I give to politics is the art of achieving what is possible and making possible what is necessary. What was necessary for the Senegalese was the change of political regime. That is what was necessary. You made it possible by making the choice that everyone knows no one had bet on this approach. And I think that surprised everyone. Rarely have we seen a party where 1,000 activists are in prison. The party leader and his relatives are released 9 days before the end of the election nominations, while the campaign is 21 days, and they managed to win the elections.
Alors que la campagne c'est 21 jours et qu'ils arrivent à gagner les élections. C'est très rare dans l'histoire.
It is very rare in history. That is why I said that you have done politics in the noble sense of the term. Mr. Prime Minister, your working visit to Bamako today, August 12, 2024, and we know it, is an act of faith, an act of friendship, as well as a demonstration of your astonishing solidarity and that of the Senegalese people towards the people of Mali. It should be recalled that this visit is taking place after, and in the wake of that of His Excellency Bassirou Diomaye Faye to Bamako on May 30, 2024. I am used to saying that these ECOWAS sanctions have demonstrated that we cannot bring to our knees a people who are determined and sufficiently informed about the geopolitical, geo-economic and geostrategic issues that are current in the Sahel region. This is why you will have noticed for years in all my speeches, in all my interventions, that I attach great importance to raising awareness and awakening the consciences of Malians and Africans.
À la sensibilisation et à l'éveil des consciences des Maliens et des Africains.
I am also used to saying that the taking of sanctions against Mali on March 10, January 9, 2022 has changed the design of the transition underway in our country. Indeed, a few days after the declaration of the embargo by ECOWAS against Mali, on the 14th of January 2022, more than 4 million Malians from the interior of the country and the diaspora came out spontaneously to say no to the suggestion, no to the imposition of an external agenda that is not the agenda of Mali or Africa, and to say no to the proxy vassalization of Mali by foreign powers.
Et dire non à la vassalisation par procuration du Mali par des puissances étrangères. Le 14 janvier,
January 14th, Mr. Premier, is now an official date retained in Mali as the day of regained sovereignty. The heavy ECOWAS sanctions imposed first on Mali, Burkina Faso and then on Niger in an even more disproportionate manner have demonstrated that ECOWAS, our now former common organization, is a threat to our three countries grouped within the Confederation, in this case, the Confederation of the Alliance of Sahel States in the face of our Sahel countries, located on the front line of the fight against terrorism for more than a decade, and certainly constituting a protective barrier for all of West Africa.
Et constituant assurément une digue de protection pour toute l'Afrique de l'Ouest. La CEDEAO a péché par son
ECOWAS has sinned by its lack of empathy, solidarity, sense and knowledge of history and above all vision and strategic maturity.
Et surtout de vision et de maturité stratégique. Vous le savez tous.
As you all know, intergovernmental organizations and regional organizations are based first and foremost on the principle of solidarity, the pooling of the resources of member states in order to achieve common goals and to achieve objectives that are mutually beneficial to all members. These principles have been perverted sometimes by inertia, sometimes by arrogance, sometimes by ignorance, sometimes by contempt for acts of extreme gravity, which contributed to the disintegration, and were posed not by the countries of the AES but by ECOWAS. First, it was the case of the freezing of financial assets at the level of the Central Bank of the States of West Africa, and the closing of the borders, that no text of the organization allows it. Even the international regulation at the level of the UN prohibits taking an embargo against landlocked countries. This is the case of Mali, Burkina and Niger, and this is why we invite all partners of good faith to have an objective, lucid and balanced reading of the situation to better understand and consider solutions based on mutual listening incompatible with the ostracism with which we wanted to strike the countries of the AES. I repeat, the AES is not set up against ECOWAS. It is a credible alternative to integration, for regional integration. The AES is not the executioner, it is the victim. The AES is engaged in a fight for the survival of these member states, and these nations of political regimes, even as some try to make people believe in malice. It is not an epiphenomenon, Mr. Prime Minister, but a long-term strategic vision of Their Excellency Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Colonel Assimi Goïta and Brigadier General Abdourahmane Chiani, respectively the head of State of Faso, of the Republic of Mali and of the Republic of Niger, in order to drive the renewal of sub-regional integration at the cost of the peoples of our space. To this end, our states, grouped within the Confederation of the Alliance of Sahel States since July 10, 2024, are firmly committed to the autonomy of action of the African organizations of which they are members, so that these organizations are definitively piloted by a properly African leadership. With this in mind, our country Mali has given constitutional value through Article 34 of its constitution to the three guiding principles of its cooperation policy, now focused on, and I quote, respect for the sovereignty of Mali, respect for the partnership choices and strategic choices made by Mali, and taking into account the vital interests of the Malian people in all decisions. La prise en compte des intérêts vitaux du peuple malien dans toutes les décisions. It is in application of these principles that the government of Mali was led to break off diplomatic relations with Ukraine on August 9, 2024, which officially assumed its involvement against the current fight that Mali and the AES states are waging against terrorism. Dans la lutte héroïque que le Mali, donc les États de l'AES, mènent contre le terrorisme. It is necessary to recall that already between 2022 to 2024, the countries of what they call John and Johnny tried in vain to involve us through their media in a geopolitical and geostrategic crisis that is taking place between two states of our continent. Today the masks have fallen. Here too, it is the beginning. We are waiting for clear and firm positions from African states. Already the member states of the AES Confederation have been clear, firm and concrete, precise also as to their relationship that I stated above, which guides public action in Mali. That I stated above which guides public action in Mali, by also recalling the need to strengthen political dialogue, as the First Gentleman testified on your visit today. Remind us of the heresy on the part of ECOWAS, which consisted in closing the doors of dialogue to the point of prohibiting our foreign affairs ministers and the height of it, our heads of state, from traveling in the community space. We applied reciprocity, and some appeared surprised, as if Mali was any state, a state you close your borders, you even prohibit our president from traveling, and then you take your plane, you come to cross, you want to cross Malian airspace. We properly turned him away. We are a peaceful state, Mr. Prime Minister. Open and dedicated to Pan-Africanism through integration and African unity, on, I say, new bases. If you observe carefully, all the countries with which we supposedly have problems, Mali has never managed, has never interfered in their internal affairs. All the countries in front of which we have assumed responsibility by putting them in their rightful place have distinguished themselves by intolerable interferences in our internal affairs, or have committed acts detrimental to the sovereignty of our country, which is fighting against terrorism, and for its existence as a state and nation. Finally, we are not against anyone. We are focused on ourselves to meet the challenges we face. We are setting out to straighten out our country, which has hit rock bottom and was threatened with disappearance due to political and security crises. We are fighting without compromise for the unity of our country, for its independence, its territorial integrity, its sovereignty, and for the dignity of our people. I thank you for your kind attention.
Merci beaucoup.
Thanks very much.
Son Excellence, Monsieur le Premier Ministre.
Your Excellency, Mr. Prime Minister of Mali,
Messieurs, Madame,
ladies and gentlemen, ministers, members of the Malian government and your colleagues, allow me first to hear from your words to bow once again to the memory of all the victims of the last attack perpetrated against the Malian people in Tinzaouaten, and which cost quite a lot in human lives.
de la dernière attaque perpétrée contre le peuple malien à Tiziwaten et qui a coûté assez cher en vies humaines. Nos prières continueront à les accompagner.
Our prayers will continue to accompany them, and I wanted, after the President of the Republic, His Excellency Bassirou Diomaye Faye, to reiterate on my behalf and on behalf of all the Senegalese people, our condolences at home, that is to say, to present our condolences to you.
C'est-à-dire tu te présentes à toi-même les condoléances. Et nous considérons que
And we consider that if it is Malian lives that are lost, it is Senegalese lives that are lost.
Son Excellence, Monsieur le Premier Ministre,
Your Excellency, Mr. Prime Minister, I am delighted to have been able to be here today.
je tenais beaucoup à faire cette escale.
I was very keen to make this stopover for reasons that are very dear to me and, to a lesser extent, personal.
C'est principalement la considération
It is mainly the consideration that I have for Mali, which I would recommend as a land, my own land, an African land certainly, but also a Senegalese land.
certes, mais une terre sénégalaise également. Beaucoup de choses me lient au Mali, vous l'avez dit.
Many things bind me to Mali, as you said, except that I am of Diola culture, and therefore I belong to this empire of Gabon as you call it, which brought together many areas, part of Gambia, Casamance, part of Guinea and perhaps even part of present-day Mali.
Et peut-être même une partie du Mali actuel. Nous avons des origines.
We also have Malian origins, if I could go back quite far in my genealogy.
Je pouvais remonter assez loin dans ma généalogie. Et de manière lucide,
And in a lucid manner, history, as you recalled earlier, has perhaps linked the design of our two countries, which in reality are only two countries because the colonizer wanted it to be. It is a colonial heritage, but it does not reflect reality, and I will come back to this shortly.
une réalité. Et je vais y revenir tout à l'heure. Donc c'est un honneur et un plaisir.
So it is an honor and a pleasure to be here to be able to renew our attachment to these Malian lands,
renouveler notre attachement à cette terre malienne, présenter nos salutations,
to present our greetings, but also to show solidarity with the Malian people for this fight that they are leading, a legitimate fight for their sovereignty, a fight also against this very cowardly phenomenon that we call terrorism.
contre ce phénomène très lâche qu'on appelle terrorisme. Et vous assurer que
And to assure you that nothing that could destabilize Mali will come from Senegal, at least not under our region.
Monsieur le Premier ministre,
At the Prime Minister's office, you made a brilliant speech that recounted a certain number of elements.
évidemment, nous sommes là pour
Obviously, we are here to discuss later when we are accepted bilateral cooperation on a certain number of issues that are of common interest that challenge us, and you have addressed a certain number of them, and you have also made lengthy developments on the situation that we are all experiencing in the sub-region.
sur la situation que nous vivons tous dans la sous-région. Son Excellence le Président Bassirou Diomaye Faye a été
His Excellency President Bassirou Diomaye Faye was appointed by his peers to conduct a mediation with the President of Togo.
conduire.
I would like to clarify that I am not here as part of this mediation.
Que je ne suis pas là dans le cadre de cette médiation. Un haut représentant a été désigné.
A high representative has been appointed in any case on the Senegalese side. An agenda is being drawn up and the mediation will take place within this very specific framework, but it is obvious that I can also go to
Il
Bamako.
est évident que je ne peux pas passer à Bamako sans qu'on ait à échanger sur ces problématiques.
Sarkozy discussed these issues which are of bilateral interest, of community interest, of national interest as well.
D'intérêt national également. Monsieur le Premier ministre, nous vivons
At the Prime Minister's office, I said we are painfully experiencing what is happening against Mali and against all African states, and particularly the Sahel states, which today are the object of a multifaceted aggression which must lead us to ask ourselves a certain number of questions.
Je voudrais dire que la position qui
I mean that the position which was ours when we were in the opposition has not changed, it is the same. I recalled all the twists and turns within the framework of ECOWAS. As an opponent, we had always condemned and denounced, first, the inelegant, inhuman, inappropriate sanctions which were applied against the Malian people. We denounced them at the time through our press releases and our speeches, that brother peoples cannot put themselves under embargo under any pretext. This is not justified, and political problems are discussed, resolved politically, especially since the application of these measures is often applied in a variable way, which is not acceptable. We have always denounced it by saying that it is better to dwell on the causes rather than the symptoms, because what leads to the seizure of power by arms must be much more worrying than the seizure of power by arms itself. If we want to solve it definitively, however, ECOWAS has never been concerned with these considerations. Often it is the doctor after death. And so we have always denounced it, and I will not change a word of my speech today that I am Prime Minister of Senegal. We had denounced personally from my prison cell, and I have brought out a text to denounce and even challenge with regard to the desire for military intervention in a country, notably Niger, that nothing is justified, and in any case it did not raise the issues of ECOWAS opinion.
Que rien ne justifiait, et en tout cas ça ne relevait pas des prérogatives de la CEDEAO à mon humble avis.
And adding war to a war situation is not one of the missions of ECOWAS, particularly in terms of seeking peace only to establish a regime. Our position has always been clear on the issue of coups d'état. This does not mean that we encourage everyone to carry out coups d'état, since we could be victims of them ourselves, but I think that we must go further if we want to find solutions and then avoid taking measures that have no impact on the populations. That is not ECOWAS, since ECOWAS is primarily the ECOWAS of the people. So our position has been very clear and we maintain it today. I believe even within the ECOWAS bodies the positions taken by His Excellency President Bassirou Diomaye Faye in courtesy remain constant in relation to these situations. And I have not assured the country, the brother people of Mali and all the peoples of the Sahel that whatever the outcome of this situation, Senegal will be a brother country that will continue hand in hand with these countries of the Sahel to obtain the best political, economic, commercial, social relations, since you have recalled on both sides that it is impossible to dissociate our two peoples. Impossible. There are a lot of Senegalese who live here on Malian soil and vice versa. But better still, very few Senegalese or Malian families have correspondents on the other side of the border. That is history, and history transcends men. But beyond these criticisms, and I want us to understand Senegal's position, because people have criticized us in a way that is gratuitous in my opinion. They have criticized us because we simply say that we want the family to remain united despite everything. Because a family quarrels, a family can have internal problems. In the Prime Minister's office, I told him that Europeans have more problems among themselves than we do among ourselves, since they were able to wage world wars that cost millions and millions of deaths. I don't think our problems have reached that level. But when they understood that their destiny was linked to the evolution of the world and to the emergence of great powers, they tried to put aside a certain number of things, and the two countries that almost started the war, and led several other wars in the past, were the driving forces of what is now called the European Union, that is to say France and Germany.
de ce qu'on appelle aujourd'hui l'Union européenne, c'est-à-dire la France et l'Allemagne. Je pense quand il y a un problème,
I think when there is a problem in the family, we sit down, we identify the wrongs and we fix. We say that this is where the problem lies. And we were not afraid to say in our opinion that ECOWAS handled these considerations very badly. And if it was our regime that was in power at the time when this was happening, we would have firmly vetoed it and there would never have been an embargo against Mali coming from Senegal. And that is why we considered that beyond personal considerations, we do not have the right to do less than our ancestors who had succeeded in making the Mali Empire, who had succeeded in making the Songhai Empire, who had succeeded in making the Ghana Empire, which transcended our borders inherited from colonization, and which were the only examples that we can give elsewhere at the level of the medieval period. And that is what our concerns are in reality. We cannot criticize someone because they say I want to do everything so that the family does not implode. That is not a sin. But we do it by looking at all the actors and telling them we think that you have sinned here. And I will remind you that ECOWAS does not belong to the President of the Republic. It does not belong to any President of the Republic. It goes beyond that. It is true that the political decision comes from him, but even if today people have decided to reach certain solutions that would consecrate a separation, the people on both sides will continue to go about their business as they have done for thousands of years, because that is history. That is why we considered that we tried as much as possible, knowing that it will be extremely difficult because the positions have crystallized, and sometimes rightly so, we understand. But our responsibility is to at least try. Whatever the result and the final outcome, it will change absolutely nothing in the relations between Senegal and Mali. Nobody can do anything about it. It will change nothing in the relations between Senegal and Burkina. It is not agreements or the fact of belonging to such and such a zone that will force us to change the breakdown of relations with each other. And sir, I wanted to tell you our greatest wish and our dream. When I was in detention, I was having fun doing calculations because we have a lot of time when we are in detention. I did a lot of calculations and I said, if it is such and such and such and such a country, what does that give us? We have 100 million inhabitants. We have 3,200,000 square kilometers and it's starting to be a market. It's starting to be one if we add such and such country or if we reduce such and such country, I thought. And it's in relation to the developments that were underway. In any case, this is to tell you, Mr. Prime Minister, that I do not want to say more so as not to hinder the mediation entrusted to two illustrious people of the sub-region, but I am here to testify to my attachment and beyond my person, of all the Senegalese people to our fraternal and secular relations with Mali, with which we share even the same motto. It does not exist anywhere in the world the same colors, the same flags, almost, the same family names. Nothing can change that, and I was there. I had held on when the President of the Republic Bassirou Diomaye Faye designated me to be represented in Rwanda, which was my first outing. I told him, Mr. President of the Republic, with all due respect, I could only do it if you allow me to come down on my return to greet my brothers in Mali, to talk with them, and especially in the bilateral framework, even before the community framework, to reaffirm this strong will of the current Senegalese political power to walk alongside our Malian friends hand in hand. And I am very, very, very touched by the welcome that was reserved for me in my delegation here. Almost the entire government is here and was there. His Excellency the President of the Malian Republic did us the honor despite the very short time of welcoming us, and that is an honor for me. an honor for Senegal. We thank you very much.
Pour moi, un honneur pour le Sénégal, nous vous en remercions. Merci beaucoup.